It's TK Friday, and today on The Joy of Editing, it's another full edit. I'll also be incorporating the new TK selection brush into the edit. You don't want to miss this one. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Thank you for joining me again today. It's another full edit. Today's image comes to us from Amy Boyce. It was taken in South Island, New Zealand. I believe the name of this bird is a pied morph. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. If you know different, let me know in the comments section below. Now, as always, you can download this image along with the PDF notes. I'll have Dropbox links in the description below this video. You have to click on more to open up that description. Scroll down through there and you'll find those Dropbox links. Also, if you'd like me to edit one of your images on a TK Friday, in that same description, just scroll down and you will find a contact me. Click on that link and contact me, and we can discuss doing one of your images on a TK Friday. Now, as always, I start out here in Lightroom and do some basic edits, which I've already done. And then I take the image over to Photoshop, and then we'll work with the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. By the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, I'll have a link for it in the description below this video. Click on that link, and that'll take you over to the TK web store where you can purchase the TK9 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. Now, if you use my promo code DK15, you'll save 15% off your entire purchase. I'll make a small commission, and when you do that, you're supporting The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and you're saving money. All right, then, now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and start this edit. Now, I start out, as always, here in Lightroom, and I just do some basic edits. As you can see here, I used a linear profile for Amy's camera, did some basic edits, not much. I want the image going pretty flat into Photoshop. As far as detail, I have a little bit of sharpening here. And then as far as lens corrections, I'm removing chromatic aberrations as well as enabling profile corrections. Now, I also did a pretty aggressive crop in this image, as you can see right here. But this is a really big file to start out. And if we need to upsize an image like this, we can always use something like Topaz Photo AI or Topaz Gigapixel AI. But that's my crop. And now at this point, I just right click on the image, go to edit in Photoshop 2024. But as always, I'm already over there. And here we are in Photoshop, ready to get started. Now, the first thing I want to do, as always, is balance and contrast. Now, I did try a depth map on this image, but it didn't really work. On an image like this, a close-up, it's not going to be that effective. So I'm doing my basic balance and contrast, and I do it like this. We'll come up to the multi-mask panel, click on the luminosity button, and we'll click midtones 3. That just keeps our highlights and shadows from clipping, and that's important. We don't want to block up the shadows or clip the highlights. And then we'll just output this to a color grading tool. So we'll click that button, and there is the mask right there on the color grading tool. And now I'll start out with shadows. I'll click on the shadow button, and I just want to darken up the shadow. So I'll take this brightness slider and drag it to the left, and I'm going to take it over to right there, a -32. And now let's work in the midtone. So I'll click on the midtone button, and I just want to open up those midtones to somewhere around right there, +35. And now let's click on the highlight button, and we'll adjust the highlights. And for the highlights, I just want to pull back a little bit because we have all this nice white area in the bird. I just want to make sure it's not too light. So I'll take that to the left, and I'll drag it over to right there, a -30. So let's shut this layer off. Here is before, and here is after, and we're off to a good start. But I'm not done on this layer, because what I'm thinking is some of the dark areas back here are a little bit too dark, so we can take care of that. And what I'll do is I'll click X to close the color grading tool. Nothing changes on this layer, and what I'll do is click on the Edit Blend Diff button, and I'm going to do a No Darks 1. You see how those darks are not quite as dark now. Let me uncheck the gray, which will shut off Edit Blend Diff, or shut off Blend Diff, I should say. See, there's before and there's after, and I think that's helpful. And now I'll close the Edit Blend Diff panel by clicking on the X. And now I'm studying my image, and as I look at this image, I feel this rock is a little bit too light, so I'd like to darken it down. Now, I'd like to select this rock. I could use an object selection tool. This button right here will give us the object selection tool. But today I want to try the brand new TK selection brush, and it's absolutely free. I'm going to click this button right here. This gives us a lasso object selection, and with a nice big brush, what I'm going to do is just paint over this rock like this. You see what I'm doing here? And this is really quick, right? And sometimes it's a little finicky when you use the object selection tool and you just got that little thin line that you're working with. But now we have this nice big brush we can work with. And then when I click this button, it will make that selection, and you'll see it. See it right there? It's made it. And we have these little selection indicators telling us we have a selection, but we have other selection indicators all over these panels that we can turn off or on. And by the way, if you don't want this, you could click on this button right here and uncheck show selection indicator. I'm going to go ahead and do that because I have this selection indicator. I don't need two selection indicators. Now that I have this selection, I'm going to come up to the multi-mask panel and click on this button for my channels, click on active selection, and then I'll click on my mask calculator, click X to intersect, because what I want to do is come and click on the luminosity mask button and intersect that with a mids 3, just so I don't clip shadows and highlights, just like I did at the opening, balance, and contrast. And now I'll click equal, and now you can see I have that mids 3 on that selection. I'm going to output it to a color grading tool and make some adjustments. I'll start out with shadows, click on the shadow button, and I'll darken up those shadows to right around here, -35. And now I'll click on the midtone button, and I want to darken up those midtones to right there, -39. Isn't that nice? Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before, and here is after. And I think that really helps, because we don't want the viewer's eye being drawn to the rock. The rock is really cool, but we want their eye to go to this beautiful pied morph. I believe that's what it is. Before we move ahead, there have been some folks who have downloaded the new TK selection brush, and they've been having some issues when they're using the lasso object selection tool. Tony has a fix for that, and here's what you need to do if you're having that problem. On the screen right now, you can see the options for users to fix this problem. You may want to pause the video and read these two different things you can do, and this will more than likely correct the issue you were having with the TK selection brush. All right, then, now moving on, I'm studying the image and I'm looking at the background. See a lot of the light areas in the background. I'd like to tone those down a little bit. I need to get to my multi-mask panel, so I'll click the X to close the color grading tool. I'll click this button right here to get a brightness contrast adjustment. Now what I want to do is I'm just looking at the light areas, so the image is going to get real ugly real fast. What I'll do is take the brightness, and again, I'm looking at the light areas. I'm going to drag it back to right there, -79. Now I'm going to take the contrast slider and drag it to the right, and I'll take it over to right there, +74. And as I said, the image has gotten very ugly. Come to the combo or CX panel and click this button to put a black hide all mask on it. And now that problem is solved, but not really. We're going to fix this background next. Now let's find a mask we can use to target those light areas. So we're going to come up to the multi-mask panel and click on this button to get a zone mask. And I'm looking for a light area up in here, and I think like maybe right here, I'm going to click that. And you can see that's where that sits. There's that color and there's that luminosity value. I'll click OK. And now we have a mask targeting those light areas, but I want to tighten it up. I'm going to take this slider and drag it in to right about here to really tighten that up. And now we'll output that to a black mask painting with a white brush. So I'll click this button. I want to start out with 30% opacity because I want to build this up slowly. So type your 3 key. That's the shortcut. That'll give you 30% opacity, and get a decent sized brush with a nice soft edge on it. And now what we'll do is we'll just paint over those light areas. I mean, you can just paint over this whole area here. I may get into the bird a little bit, but that's okay. We can come back and fix that later, and I'll show you what we do. So I'm just painting away in here like so, and just getting rid of some of those lighter areas. Now that is one pass. Now I'm going to come and paint over that whole area again with a second pass. It'll build that up a little bit more. So, and basically, you paint as many times as you think you need just to get it to the level that you like. And I think I'm pretty good maybe right about here. Now, let me go ahead and shut this layer off. Here's the before and here's the after. Now, you can always come here and readjust your brightness and contrast if you need it, but I think I'm good. Now, if you click this double arrow button on your combo panel, we can see that I've painted on the bird a little bit and a little bit down in this rock. It's really not going to hurt anything, but what I'll do is switch to a black brush by clicking this button on the combo panel. I'm going to change my opacity from 30% up to 100%, so I'll type my 0 key. That gives you 100% opacity, and then I'm just going to paint this off here. You see that? Now, I'm still painting through a selection, by the way. I probably could have shut the selection off, but I'm on the beak here as well. So let me make my brush a little bit smaller and just paint this off of here. I was a little too aggressive up in there, and I'm just going to come down in here and paint off this rock a little bit and right here, and I think that's going to be good. Now, let me go ahead and click this button again. And now let me shut this layer off. Here is before and here is after. But you see how that just tones that background down? And as I said, you can come here and readjust anything you need to if you have to. And now as I study the image, I'm feeling like I need to lighten up the midtones. And to do that, it's very simple. Just come up to the multi-mask panel, click on your luminosity mask button, and click on midtones 1. Now you have 3 midtones. Midtones 1, midtones 2, midtones 3, they're all midtones, but the most subtle midtone adjustment will be midtones 1, and that's what I like to use for lightening up midtones. If I need to be more aggressive, I could go up to 2 if I had to, but 1's going to be good. I'm going to output this to a curves adjustment layer. I'm not using the curve here. All I'm doing is using it for a blend mode. So I'll click on the screen blend mode button, and now my midtones are light. Now let me shut this layer off. Here is before, and now here is after. Just a nice little lightening up of those midtones, and it's very helpful. And now it's time for a TK action. So I'm going to click on my TK action button, and what I want is clarity. I'm going to click on the clarity button, and you'll get a high pass filter dialog comes up. And what I want to do is right now at like 10 pixels, you get a nice sharpening. I'm just going to increase that a little bit to like 19 and click OK. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. See all that nice detail that came up, but I don't want that detail everywhere. I'm only interested in the bird and a little bit of this area up here where it's sharper on this rock. Now, all you need to do is click on this black button. It puts a black hide all mask on this layer, and get a white brush. So click on the white brush button on either the combo or CX panel. And with a nice soft edge at 100%, if you don't have 100%, type your 0 key, and just paint on the bird like so. Just like this, we'll paint over the entire bird here. See how that detail just starts to pop up? I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller and paint across the beak here and around the edge here. I'm staying away from the edge out here. I could have used an object selection, but sometimes you get a little bit of a halo, and I didn't want that. Now I'm going to come down to the rock, and just in this area right here, just paint on the rock. On those areas, like I said, that are a little bit sharper, and that just brings out that detail. Now, let me go ahead and shut this layer off. Now, here is before, and here is after. Now, what I want to do is click on the black brush button, and with a really small little brush, I'm just going to paint it off this eye here. It darkens that eye up a little bit right there, and I don't want that. So I think that's good. So let me shut this layer off again. Here is before, and here is after. What is next, Dave? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm looking at the image, and I'm looking at the grasses down here. There's some green areas down in here, and I'd like to increase that saturation a little bit. So a great way of doing that is coming up to the multi-mask panel and clicking on this button, and you can create a color mask with this. And what I want to do is sample a color on some of the grass. Now I'm going to go with this color right here and click OK. And now you can see there is that grass selected. I'm going to take this brightness slider and drag it to the right to somewhere like right about there, just to lighten that all up. Now it's also getting some areas in the background that I don't want, but now we're going to use the TK selection brush again. This time I'm going to click on this button. This is for just a standard selection, a basic selection. So click it, And I'll get a decent sized brush here. And what I'll do is just paint like this on the area that I want. You see that? Isn't this cool? I'm really enjoying this new selection brush. I just think it's very useful. And then click this button again. As you can see, I've made that selection. But now you're saying, what the heck are you going to do with that, Dave? Well, let me show you. I'm going to click on this button here. This is for mask the mask. Click it. And then the radius is at 0.1. That's fine. I don't need feathering. If you need feathering, you can drag this to the right. I'm just going to click OK. And now you can see I just have those green areas. All the areas that are light are green, actually, or greenish yellow. I'll put this to a hue saturation adjustment layer. And now we shall make an adjustment. By the way, if you're enjoying the new TK selection brush, let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you, and I'm sure Tony would love to hear from you also. Well, let's go ahead and make the adjustment. I'm just going to take the saturation and drag it to the right, and I will stop right here, plus 55. Let me shut this layer off. Here is before, and here is after. Again, before and after. It just brings up that green saturation, and I like it. And now, upon further study, I'm looking at the bird's beak. I'd like to bring this saturation up on that beak. Let's do the same thing we did before and click on the color mask button. And let's choose a color in this beak, like right here, and click OK. And there's that beak right there. Let's go ahead and brighten this up a bit to somewhere right around there. Now, obviously, I could just grab a lasso tool and just lasso around there, but let's keep working with the new TK selection brush. You can work it either way. Sometimes the lasso tool is quicker, but I'm going to use this because I want you to get familiar with it. This is the standard lasso. And by the way, you can see a magenta outline around whichever button you've selected, okay? And it always gives you the plus. I have a video, a first look video. Check out my YouTube channel. Watch that. It'll really help you out. I give you a lot of tips and tricks on that video, so check that out. I'll link it at the end of this video. But now with our brush, I'll make my brush smaller and just paint over the beak, just like that. And click this button, and you have a selection. We're going to use the mask again, so click this button. We're not going to feather it, just click OK, and there it is. And now we output it to a hue saturation adjustment layer, and now we can make an adjustment. This bird doesn't look too happy. I think he wants his beak saturated a little bit more. So let's give that to him, or her, I'm not sure which. We'll drag the saturation slider to the right, and I'll take it over to right there, plus 55. Let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Now that's better, and I hope you are happy. Not you out there, but the bird I'm talking to. Okay, it's time for another TK action. Now, if your actions aren't open, click your TK button on either the combo or CX panel. One of my favorites, soft pop. I use it a lot. I'm going to click this button and do soft pop. And now we've added some pop to the entire image, but I don't want it on the entire image. I only want it on the rock area and on this grass. I need to select this rock, so I'll use the object selection tool. Now, you can just use the regular object selection tool in the lasso mode, but I'm working with the TK selection brush, and I love it. So I'm going to click this button, and this gives you the lasso object selection. And again, I'm going to get a decent sized brush here and just kind of paint on all the area. I want the grass this time. So I'm going to paint like this, paint this all in like so. And then we will click this button again to make the selection. And just like that, we've got that selection, but we're not done here. Now we'll use one of my favorite tools, and that is the layer mask calculator. So we're going to click this button. I'm using the combo panel. It's on the CX panel as well. Click on active selection and then click this button to apply it. And now we only have it on the rock and on the grass. Now we still see a selection here. And you can use this button to deselect on the selection brush, or you can use this button on the combo panel. This button's really easy to find, so I'm just going to click it and deselect. Now let me shut this layer off. Here is before and here is after. Isn't that cool? Again, before and after. Brings up the saturation, pops a little bit, pops a little more contrast, and I really like it. And it also increases the detail a little bit. Are you ready for another action? Well, let's do another action. What we're going to do is one of my favorites, color luminosity. So we're going to click this button. Again, if your actions aren't open, click on your TK on either the combo or CX panel. And this is really cool because I can adjust all these different colors, the luminosity of the colors only. Okay, so for reds, I can adjust reds and see how I can bring out some of these areas on the grass right here if I bring up the red, and then I can go to yellows and decide which way I want to go with yellows and greens and so on, and cyans and magenta and blues, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and look at my notes and pop in the numbers that I used when I originally made this edit, and I'll be back in a flash. I'm back, and here is before color luminosity. And now let me turn this layer on. Here is after. So again, before and after, and I really like it, except for the bird's beak. I think he's a little angry at me. I better tone this down because when I lightened up the yellows, the beak got a little too light and it looks a little unnatural. So let's go ahead and fix that. And it's an easy fix. All we need to do is click on the black brush button on the combo or CX panel. Get a small, nice little soft edge brush at 100% opacity and paint it off just like that, and we're good to go. Again, here's the before, and here is the after, and I think the bird is happy. I hope you are, bird. One final step, and what do you think it is? If you're thinking, you need a vignette on this, Dave, you are right. But I'm going to do a freehand vignette this time, and I'm going to use the standard selection brush. So I'm going to click this button, and with a nice big brush, what I'll do is paint in the area that I do not want the vignette, like the grass here, something like this, the bird right up in here, like that. And then we will click the button again and make the selection. And there's the selection. All you need to do is click your TK action button if your actions aren't open, and then click freehand vignette. A Gaussian blur dialog comes up. Just click OK. And just like that. Let me shut this off. Here is before and here is after. This defaults at a 30% layer opacity. I'm just going to change this to 35%. So let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after. And there it is. Now let's go back and see where we started this edit out at. So I'm going to come to my combo panel and click on this before after button. Here is before. We started out here and we end up here. Don't forget to download the image and the PDF notes and give this edit a try. If you don't yet have the TK selection brush, it's absolutely free. I'll have a link in the description below. Go ahead and pick it up. You'll be glad you did. There it is. I hope you enjoyed today's TK Friday tutorial. If you did, please give it a like. Share it with your friends, and if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon. Click all so that you'll receive all notifications, and then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I will see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.